Hello and welcome to 5 Ways to Hold Meetings in Teams. We want you to be able to choose the right method for your meeting's purpose. My name is Nathan Austin, and I will be leading through the presentation today, and Stephanie Kingsley will be behind the scenes producing. Ultimately today, the problem we're trying to solve is really to help you understand and help your team understand that there's different ways and different reasons to hold the different types of meetings in teams. So that's what we're going to spend our time doing today. And let's just start going through it. So again, the purpose of this session is a how-to. I am literally going to walk you through the different types of ways to do it so you know and understand some of the nuances. I'm going to go relatively quickly, I would say, but we are recording this session so you can refer to it at a later date and go back to it. I would encourage you to do that if you're trying to work through this, as well as once the recording is done, if you want to share it with any of your team members that might be trying to figure out different ways to hold meetings in teams or why you might want to hold the different types of meetings in teams. This will be a great session to give them a good primer on understanding that. So we're going to touch on some of the common types of virtual meetings that we have, not that we have, that very often organizations and businesses and nonprofits face or they have to try and deal with, some of which are internal, some of which are one-on-one or one-to-many, some are with external vendor partners or external customers or clients. So there's different reasons why you might want to choose the different methods. So we're going to talk about some of those common types, walk you through the demonstration. We'll actually illustrate those different types or different ways in which you might be able to hold those different meetings. And then there'll be a summary at the end that says basically if you want to use this type of meeting for this type of purpose. So we really try and connect those dots for you and give you some good summary reference information to take away from the session. And then of course at the end we'll have about 30 minutes of content where we'll go through all this information, and then we will open it up for Q&A at the end and any questions you might have about Microsoft 365, Teams meetings, or any other types of questions, even outside of holding meetings in Teams, if you have them. All right, but I don't want to stop you from putting in questions right now. So even if you have questions starting right now and at any point throughout the presentation, the Q&A panel is open. So go ahead and please enter your questions or update your questions in there. Stephanie will be watching those questions. She might even be able to answer your question offline, or if not, she'll ask the question later and we'll go through it at the end. So, but I don't want you to wait till the end to think of a question if you have one in the middle. So that's okay. Please go ahead and do that. All right, with that said, let's move on to some of just 1 minute about Mitek before we dig into all the sessions. I almost forgot about this slide, forgive me. Again, Mitek is a business and technology consulting service that works with small and medium businesses in the Denver, Colorado, and the Twin Cities in Minnesota metropolitan areas. We ultimately, over the last 20 years of being in business, have developed a proven IT strategy, not the only proven IT strategy, but a proven IT strategy that we know can achieve proven, consistent results for our clients. We know that removes challenges. It enables you to spend more time serving your customers, your clients, or fulfilling your mission, and ultimately allows you to be more adaptable to the different challenges that businesses face over time. One of them is our clients very successfully migrated to being able to work from home, just because that was already built into the core of a lot of the technology that we implement, as an example. But we know together, and following this proven IT strategy, that our clients can achieve 4 times more value and productivity from their IT investments than they have in the past. So that's 1 minute about Mitek. If you want to learn more about that, we'd love to talk to you. Please reach out and say, hey. But otherwise, that's not why you're here. So let's move on to the content, and we'll talk about the different types or the common meeting types that we have, and especially when you consider virtual meeting types that we're all doing right now and that we're accustomed to this year. Okay, so common types. Again, I just threw a bunch of them up here. Oftentimes, if you're a manager or a supervisor, you have one-on-one meetings that you may have with your team. It could be just kind of ad hoc one-to-many if you're collaborating with a group of a few people. There might be special project meetings, or maybe you have a project that has to run for a couple months, and so you have a specific group of people and you need to have a meeting about that. Some of these meetings are all company meetings. If you're one of the leaders of the organization or content or information you need to present to your whole company, it might be something that you do that on a quarterly rhythm or a monthly rhythm, depending on your organization. And where would you hold those, and why would you hold those in a certain place? In addition, most companies do some sort of training. And I know that those that are doing training like to optimize their time and maybe be able to save that training or record that training. So we're not going to dig into the recording and things like that today. However, training meetings are a very common one, and thinking about hosting and holding those training meetings and recording them in a way that your team has easy access to them in the future, or even from an onboarding perspective, if you have new employees that are going to be joining your organization in the future, being able to record those past trainings to help as part of their onboarding plan, and then giving them access to those recordings. I know that's something that's been very beneficial in our organization. Even doing sessions like this, we will oftentimes include those into our team onboarding, so they get a feel for what it is we do and how we communicate about information like Teams. Department meetings, if you're a department head or a department manager, you often are having either monthly, if not weekly, team meetings, and having a place where you can consistently hold those and know that your team knows that that's where you hold those meetings. We'll talk about those briefly and show you how to do that. As well as, internal meetings aren't the only type of meetings we have. Sometimes we have to work with external vendor partners or external clients or customers that are not part of our company or our organization. So we'll show you those vendor part meetings, again, external, doing virtual webinars like this, for example, and using Teams to be able to do that. That is a specific method of holding a meeting in Teams that has specific functionality and nuances to it. And the last one that it's kind of minor, and it's basically a combination of some of the other department meetings or all company meetings, but having a guest team meeting. There might be a reason why you've chosen to have a team in your organization that you've extended access to guests outside of your organization. So you might host a meeting inside of a guest environment where it's and I'll show you that. And one of the things that I'm going to demonstrate that I think is important for you to understand, which is why we wanted to illustrate it today, is not just that you can host a guest meeting, but that we want to show you what the guest experience looks like. Because if you haven't seen that, I think it's really good to know and see from the guest's perspective, if you did invite someone or you choose to invite someone in the future to join your team's environment as a guest, what do they see? What does that look like? Versus what you see. So we're going to show you that as well. But overall, I might not hit on, you might be thinking, well, what about this kind of a meeting? Well, in general, we're going to be talking about kind of, one-on-one or one-to-many that are more ad hoc, more that are departmental or all company. Then there's going to be external kind of meetings. Then there's going to be webinars and then guests. It's really the high level, different types of meetings that we're going to hit on, and we're going to summarize that at the end. But before we do all that, let's dig into the demonstration, and we'll talk about the 5 different ways to hold Teams meetings. So I'm going to shift out of my full PowerPoint here, and I'm going to go to the, I've got Teams open in the web application, so you can see that. It looks just like Teams, but you'll notice the web browser bar at the top here. The reason why I'm doing this is because I'm currently in my Teams application to host this session that you're listening to now or that you're watching later, and I can't show you some of these things in the Teams app, so that's why I'm using the web browser to show you some of these illustrations, just because if I try and show you how to hold a meeting in Teams, it'll actually kick me out of the meeting that I'm currently in. So that's why I'm using the web browser. So you'll notice it's subtly different, but effectively all of the functionality that we're talking about works nearly the same, and you will barely notice the difference. So I'm going to start up here with chat. So if you're familiar with Teams, you've got the columns along the side. I'm going to start with chat. So Stephanie is online here, and so if I wanted to host a call with Stephanie, it's one of the things that I could do here. I just have to browse to Stephanie, and then notice, and I'm going to hit my little circle note up here that so you can see my cursor a little bit easier. So this is if I want to just hold a video call, or if I want to just do an audio call. Now if I just do an audio call, I can always turn on my video, and I'll give you an illustration of that. So Stephanie is online right now. We're not going to be able to hear any audio through this, but you get the point. It's actually going to make a phone call, not unlike what you may be used to when you pick up the phone or dial your cell phone. So I'm going to go ahead and hit audio call. And are you sure you don't audio? Yes, I want to continue without audio. Actually, it's not going to let me do it because I'm already in this other, it's going to host this, but it won't let me actually have some of my audio. That's why I notice I'm muted down here. So that's just calling Stephanie, just like you would have a normal call and a phone call. I'm not going to have to bother have a conversation with Stephanie because I really can't. But there, Stephanie has connected. Now, if I wanted to turn on my camera, I could just turn this on. Notice I just made an audio call and Stephanie ended the call, which is great. But if I could have just turned on the camera. So again, that's just a simple one. One of the ways I've found using those kind of meetings is because if I'm chatting with Stephanie, you know, and how often are you trying to chat back and forth and you feel like, you know what, if I just picked up the phone, I can solve this problem a lot faster if I just picked up the phone really quick. So very often, and this is also one of those courtesy things that now with we're working remotely and seems like we always need to be available, a little courtesy would be say, hey, Stephanie, can you chat quick? And just send her a little heads up note. And notice the icon just changed, so I know that she saw that and she can say, so it's at least a little acknowledgement before I just call her out of the blue on Teams or call her out of the blue with a video call, for example. So those are just a couple of the nuances around a chat. This is the simplest, the easiest one that you're gonna get used to. So one of the things that I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna show you and illustrate what about a one-to-many conversation. So I'm actually going to go up here to the chat and I'm gonna make a new chat. Even though I probably already have a little bit of that demonstrated down here, I'm going to go up here and hit new. So new chat. And I'm going to add Stephanie just like I had there. Notice she comes up. And then I'm also going to add Gerald because Gerald's also someone that we have in this environment. And I'm going to do a quick chat here that'll establish the chat. Hey there, can we all chat quick? Now, Gerald is not online, so you can kind of see that he's not online here where Stephanie is. So he's not going to be able to answer. But you notice this chat, if I'm collaborating with Gerald or Stephanie and we have a group chat going, I can very quickly just do the same thing up here. I can either do a video call or an audio call, and this will actually simultaneously. You know, have you ever been on your cell phone? And you're like, okay, I need to get all of us on the phone. Here, I'll call Gerald. Let me put Gerald on hold. Then I'll call Stephanie, and then I'll join the calls. Well, with Teams, you can do the same thing, except it's one click. You basically come up here and click audio call, and it calls Gerald and Stephanie simultaneously, and then brings them into the meeting when they answer. So I actually really like that feature because it makes it just really easy. If you're having a conversation and collaborating with a couple people via chat, you can very easily just create a quick meeting or join a quick meeting or start a quick meeting. All right, so this is the same as what I just illustrated with Stephanie, so I'm not going to do that again. But all you have to do is click, you know, one of these two up here as far as which one you want. The next thing that I want to illustrate, and this is another kind of purpose that I see chat being used, other than just some ad hoc conversation like this with Gerald or Stephanie. Let's say that Gerald and Stephanie and I are on a small project together that we're working on for a period of time. So notice this little pencil icon that's up here right next to the names. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to type a group name. I'm going to say small, short, short-term project collaboration. I'm stating something that's trying to make it as obvious as possible. So now I actually have the chat. It's the same two people, or it could be different people, of course, but I've named it so that it's easy to sort for and filter. One of the other things that I like doing when this happens, and this is a little bit outside of the teams, because again, I can hold chats and I can also hold calls here, as you see. But one of the things I like to do is when I hover over it, notice when I hover over this chat right here, the little breadcrumbs or these ellipses pop up. So I'm going to click on that really quick. And one of the things that I like to do when I'm in the midst of collaborating on a short-term project or something like this via chat, I'll pin this chat. So if you notice what I've done, I'll pin that, and now it pops up here. So it's always going to be available in my towards the top of my screen versus maybe getting lost somewhere down in the string of chats that I might have in my organization. It's one of my favorite things to do. And then you know what? When this conversation is done or this project is over, I can just hit unpin, and now I no longer have to worry about it, and it'll kind of go into obscurity. But the chat's still there if I need to. So those are the few ways, in particular, when you're just doing a chat like a one-to-one or one-to-many, and if you're doing a small-term or short-term project, for example, you can use the simple chat capabilities to be able to collaborate effectively with the team. All right, so now we're going to move to the company. So I'm going to move to something that's more, instead of the chat section, we're going to move down here to the Teams section of Teams. And I always like to shout out Microsoft for saying thank you for calling the application Microsoft Teams the same thing as you call a subset of Microsoft Teams Teams. Thank you. So we're going to click on Teams here, the tab of Teams. And an illustration of that, we've kind of built out a demonstration here, or kind of a model of what your company might look like. So for instance, an all company channel or an all company team. So you might choose to host your all company meetings here in the general channel. So there's a couple different ways to do that. So for instance, if I can come over here, I'm already in the general channel. Notice I'm over here, I'm in the all company general channel. I'm just gonna move my cursor all the way up over here, and you see that the meet icon is up here. So notice this is where you can hit meet. So I'm gonna click the little drop-down option next to meet, where it says, do I wanna meet now, or do I wanna schedule a meeting? So chances are, if you're having an all company meeting, you're gonna schedule it, right? You're not just gonna throw it at your team impromptu. So you're gonna schedule this meeting, and it'll pop up a window to allow you to schedule it, you know, and say all company meeting for November, right? And then you can schedule that. I'll just say that's going to be this Friday. Let's make it at 9 a.m. is when we're going to hold this meeting, and make it till 10 a.m. Okay, so we're going to hold the meeting this Friday from 9 to 10. Does not repeat. Notice it already, I could invite people here, but it's already going to invite or note people that are part of the all company general channel. So this is an important note. In fact, one of our team members learned this lesson recently, where they created a meeting like this in one of our channels. And it's one of the channels that there's a few of us that primarily use this channel. I'm one of those, but we invite other people to be part of the channel so that they just have visibility. Although they don't usually participate, we just want to give them visibility. So he used this method to invite them to the channel, to a meeting, and it synchronized to everyone's calendar who is in that channel, right? Who's on part of that team, when really there's only 3 people that needed to be invited. So if you're trying to schedule a meeting, it's okay. What you can do, by default, if you schedule a meeting inside of a channel, this is what's going to happen. You're going to see that it defaults to the channel that you are in, right? Because I was in the all company general channel. That was automatically populated when I said schedule meeting. You can delete this if you want. So now I deleted that, so it doesn't, I can add a channel, but maybe if I just wanted to add the specific people, I could basically say, there we go. So I could just add Stephanie if I wanted to, because I want to hold the meeting maybe in this channel, but I'm really only going to meet with Stephanie. But I just removed the channel because it's not going to then send it out or add it to everyone's calendar who's already in that channel. So that's one of the ways to hold a meeting. And then, so I'm going to actually click send on this. So that is actually going to create that calendar invite. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to come over here to my calendar so you see what that looks like. So if you can see, I'm over here on the calendar tab on the side. And in the calendar tab, I'm hoping, yep, here we go. Here's the all company meeting that I just scheduled. So I'm going to double click on that. Actually, I didn't have to double click, but it puts it on my calendar and it gives me the links to be able to join the meeting, right? So just like, and I'll show you, this will look similar to another method that I'll show you in a moment, but basically provides a link to be able to join the meeting. Also, I don't have to actually double click on that. What I did, I can just click on it once and I can join this way too. I don't actually have to click into it to be able to do it. And so this could work for your entire team, just for the subset of people that you might choose to invite, but you get the idea that this is basically a way that you can schedule an all company meeting. One of the ways that, so an alternative way of the all company meeting is, or of holding a department meeting is, I actually use Outlook to schedule my recurring meetings. So I'll give you an example of that. So I'm going to pull over into my Outlook, and this will kind of be a segue into, well, actually, sorry, one last thing really quick. I'm going to go into Teams really quick over here. One of the things that I would recommend, use the same kind of methodology we just talked about, except for if you're doing training, you don't have to do a training channel, but it might be a good way if you have all company training content that you're hosting, it might make sense to have just a training channel. And then this is where you host any of those trainings, and this is where you record them, and this is where they basically get saved into perpetuity until you choose to delete them. So it creates an easy place for your team to go if you're hosting training meetings. So that's one of the things I would keep in mind. So you can kind of, in the general channel, All company meetings under the all company team could work really well. If you happen to be hosting training, whether it's a department training or an all company training, it might make sense to have a training channel like this one's in the all company channel. But maybe if I'm on the operations team, maybe I want to have a training channel there. That's okay too. Just think about how you might choose to use that so you can bring your training into a single spot that's applicable for the right group. And then the same concept, this is where I'll segue over to Outlook. But let's say I'm hosting a department meeting. So if I'm in the operations team, okay, so I'm an operations team, I'm going to go to my Outlook calendar, and I'll show you what I mean by this. So I've got a weekly operations team invite that I did here. I can't remember if I added the team or not. So I actually here I'm going to show you an example. So let's say I'm going to come over here on my Outlook calendar. I'm just do a new appointment, and I'm going to do a recurring appointment, and it's going to go from 9 to 10 every Thursday morning. Great. And I'm going to basically say, you know, I'll just put marketing team meeting. So notice there's this Teams meeting link up here. That's where we're going to go next. But if this is our weekly team meeting, I actually want to meet in my my marketing team channel. So I actually don't even put the link into this invite. I just make sure the right people are invited. So let's say Stephanie, for example, Stephanie and Gerald, for the sake of this conversation, because that's what I'm using, that those are the two people that I really want invited to the meeting. But we know, I'll just say that we meet in the marketing general channel. So I can just note that, but I don't actually put the link here. You can if you want. Again, that's the way I was just showing you. You can schedule it, and it does embed the link. But a lot of times when I was doing this, this is just how I did it. And everyone knows that when I come into the web browser, I'll go into the marketing team up here. So I'm in the marketing team general channel. I'll just do a quick meet now, and I'll say, yes, I'm going to continue with the audio video, and I'm going to add a little subject up here that says weekly marketing team meeting, and then I can say meet now. So now everyone in the marketing team, so I'm going to click over here. You'll notice if Stephanie in this example sees that there's a little camera icon, they should be able to navigate and join. I've already told people when, and I said we're going to do it in the general channel. So this is where they can just go to be able to join that meeting. So it's a couple different ways to do it. It's really about your preference. One of the reasons why we do it this way is because the way our Teams calendar syncs with our Outlook calendar, syncs with our CRM calendar, it gets a little messy doing the meeting via Teams, creating the calendar invite via Teams. It's just a nuance of our CRM, the way it works and integrates. So that's one of the reasons why we've done it this way. But this is an example where I just tell people, yep, meet in the marketing channel, or meet in the operations channel, or meet in the the all company general channel, whatever that makes sense is one way to do it. So I'm gonna go ahead and close out of this. But that's how you can do department meetings as well. You can either use your calendar here, you can schedule the meeting up here by hitting schedule meeting, or as I just illustrated, you can do it in the, you can create a calendar invite and say, hey, we're just gonna meet in the marketing general channel, right? That's okay. So now let's move to, I kind of previewed it, but we're gonna move to how to do this inside of Outlook. So for instance, I actually created an Outlook, I actually created a couple calendar invites here. This is one that I created. So for instance, I created this marketing vendor collaboration marketing meeting test. So I already created the meeting, already invited the person, Stephanie, and I saved it. But I forgot to make it a Teams meeting. So what I'm going to do to illustrate that, so I already created it. So what do I do if I want to change that? So I can actually just go up here, and with one click, I'm going to say make this meeting a Teams meeting. And notice once I click that, it automatically populated all this information down here that we need for the Teams meeting, and then I can send an update to Stephanie just by clicking send. One thing I'm going to illustrate though is that unless you have one of the advanced licenses that allows you to have a dial-in number for your Teams, which you can see here, this demo environment does have that advanced license, but this capability down here is an additional cost, which would allow someone to literally dial in via the phone number versus just use their Teams app or a web browser to be able to dial in. So normally you would just see this, but this license, unless you have an enhanced license, you'll get this other information down here. So that's a way where I can have something on my calendar. I want to make it a Teams meeting because maybe we intended to meet in person, but lo and behold, we have to meet virtually. So with one click, by just opening it up and clicking make it a Teams meeting, I now have made this this meeting a Teams meeting. All right. The other way to do it, if you're scheduling an Outlook, and this permissioning also allows you to send externally. You can invite basically anyone that has the link to this meeting can join. So if I want to create a new Teams meeting, I can just, so I've highlighted that one, so I got to click out of it. Notice how if I select this just turned to join Teams meeting, and now I'll click out of that onto the regular, just kind of a white space on the calendar. It says new Teams meeting. So that's one of the ways that you can join Teams meetings. You don't even have to open it, you just have to click on it. But if I want to schedule a new meeting in Outlook, I can just come up here and say new Teams meeting. It basically pulls open the calendar invite and automatically populates the Teams information down here in a unique link. So that's where I can easily send that internally, externally to different team members or external vendor partners or clients or participants, etc. So that's a way where you can just create a new Teams meeting, invite the right people. It already has the link included, and anyone who has that link can access. Now, as a caveat to illustrating that anyone who has the link can access, when they join that Teams meeting as an external guest, they don't get admitted into the meeting until you choose to do so. You have to admit them in from the lobby. So you'll actually get a little notification saying, hey, you've got guests waiting in the lobby. Do you want to admit them? If you don't recognize them, like maybe someone got forwarded the invitation that you didn't want, you don't have to admit them, right? But that's one of the things that this does allow anyone to join, no matter, as long as they have the link, they can join. But you have to let them in, right? So if you're starting the meeting, you're in the meeting, they'll go into your lobby if they're not part of your organization, and you have to admit them in if they're not part of your organization. So that's how you can kind of control some of the security. I do not want to save your changes. Okay, so now I've shown you how to basically create an invite, a new one. You can edit an existing one if you need to make it a Teams meeting, as well as how you can do that basically with just like a department meeting. So now I want to show you what it looks like as a guest team. So I'm going to go down here. Actually, I'm going to go to my web browser. Excuse me, I forgot. I need to go to the web browser. So if you are a guest, you will not see what I'm about to show you unless you are already a guest of an existing a different team, a different tenants environments, like a client's environments or vendors environments, etc. So for instance, if you look up here, there's a little subtle drop down in this upper corner next to the company name. This is the demo environment. So I'm actually going to show you that this is what you see. But one of the things that I know we created down here, I think we created a guest team. So for instance, what we did down here, I'm going to pull this up just to illustrate. We basically created a guest access team. And so if this was your environment, you would see the guest access team just like another team that you can access and you could post, et cetera. Just like everything else you see in your team environment here, you would see the same thing. Now, if you are so this is if it's the guest team is part of your environment. If you are a member of a guest team joining externally, you'll see something like this. So I got to come up here, click this drop down. Now you're going to notice it basically is going to log me out of this environment and effectively log me in as a guest once I click that. So see how it's basically logging me out, and now it's logging me back in as a guest of the Mitek Partners environment. So we set up a Mitek guest access demo. So now all I see is what I've been given access to as a guest. So I only see one team and one channel. Whereas if you notice when it was part of your organization, you saw all of the teams environments and teams channels on the side here. So that's one of the things, again, and you can do the same thing by holding meetings. The only thing I can't do, if you notice, I can't schedule a meeting. I can only do Meet Now when I'm in that. So I'm going to go ahead and start that, hit Meet Now and close it. But notice as a guest, I can't actually schedule a meeting. I can only do a Meet Now. But when I go, and then if I want to switch back, I have to click this little drop down. And then again, it logs me out of the guest environment, logs me back into the main environment, and then I'm able to continue on with my meeting. And again, my guest environment down here is just part of my team's environment. Okay, so and because this is my channel, part of my guest, I can schedule it because this is my organization's guest team. I can do all the functionality that I just mentioned as far as scheduling a meeting or a meeting now, right? So it's just a subtle difference of if you're allowing people externally to be able to be part of a team, which is different than if you're just inviting them to a meeting externally. Like, so when I did the Outlook invite, you can invite them to that one-time meeting and that's it. When you make them part of a team, it might be that you're collaborating with a vendor partner or one of your clients on something external, and that you can actually start collaborating on files and doing more of that. And it's a real living, breathing, they can access it whenever they want, as long as you continue to allow them to, versus just the Outlook invite. So it's a little bit different, but I wanted to show you what it looks like if it's inside of your organization or if you're a guest joining externally. And the last thing that I want to show you is the live event. So I'm going to come over here to the calendar off the side here. I'm going to click calendar, and you'll notice there's also this little drop down over here, this next to new meeting. So this is where you can schedule a new meeting just like what we did in one of the channels. It gives you the same view. So I'm going to click on this just to illustrate it. So if I click new meeting here from the calendar view, it's the exact same view that we had when we went to schedule a meeting inside of one of the channels, except it didn't default to a channel because you weren't in a channel when you said create a new meeting. So that's an example of that, but I'm not going to show you, I already showed you that. I just want to illustrate that point. When you're in the calendar view, and this is where you can access a live meeting or live event, you have to click this little drop down on the side here. And again, this is also an enhanced license. If you don't have the license to do this, you won't see this. At least I don't think you'll see it. But you hit the drop down, you select live event. And then I'm going to do a quick test just so you see some of the things you can do. So for instance, I'm going to choose, I'll just make it 4 p.m. today. I'll just say 4 p.m. to 4:30. That's perfect. You have to choose. I'm the organizer by default because I created the event. And let's say I want to invite Stephanie. I want to invite her as a presenter, right? So I can make her a producer or presenter. I want to make her a presenter. I'm the producer here for this example. I'm going to click next. And this is a permission thing. So if you want to host live events, so several of our clients have been doing this, including us. If you want to host a live event, know that this by default only lets people inside your organization join. If you want to extend it to the public, well, like what we're doing here today, there's some permissions on the back end in the admin console that you need to set in order to be able to invite people externally. So this is when you set who can join. This is also when you set, hey, do you want the Q&A? Do you want captions? Do you want the recording available, etc. So this is where you can create that and choose org-wide. So this might be a way you might want to do your all company meetings. Depending on the number of people you have in your organization, this will basically make sure that all the attendees, except for the people that you designate, are on mute. So this is one of the reasons why you might choose to hold a live event. It could be external, but it could also be internal. And then of course, if you want to do public, you just choose that setting here. I'll just say public for the sake of this and hit schedule. So now this is going to pop onto my calendar. I'm going to go and close this. So now this test event's on my calendar. If I double click on it, I can see it. But if I also want to edit the meeting, I can go in and edit the meeting by clicking here. And maybe if I need to change it, for instance, if I need to change it from an org-wide, maybe I accidentally select org-wide and I meant public or vice versa, I can go in and edit it all the way up until the point you actually start the meeting. So if before you actually start the meeting, the live event, double check your settings. It's a little tip I would give you. That way you can make sure that you have the right settings before you actually start it. Because if you start it with the wrong settings, you basically have to go create a whole new event in order to get people back in the right way. So I'm going to hit close on that. So ultimately, those are the 5 ways to hold meetings in teams. Really, from a chat perspective, it's one-to-one or one-to-many or like a special project. Use your channels for your all company or department meetings or maybe doing training. Use an Outlook invite if you're using like external clients or customers or vendor meetings that are outside of your organization. And then you can use that guest channel if it makes sense, if you want to do a little bit deeper collaboration with third parties and external entities, or you can use your live event. And the live event is actually something where you might be able to hold your all company meetings or just external webinars. So thank you very much for, hopefully this summary helps as a guide to be able to identify different meetings and different ways to engage with teams. And again, the 5 different ways to hold meetings in teams, so you can choose the meeting purpose for the purpose of your meeting. So here's some recommended items. If any of these things were little nuggets, really understand the problem you're trying to solve. Like, what's the meeting purpose? Maybe write down some of those nuggets and take some action in the next 24 to 48 hours if it makes sense. Then I'm going to pull a little something different here. We actually have a Make a Difference community grant going on right now. We're going to announce in December. We're identifying a nonprofit in Minnesota. We did this a couple years ago in Colorado, but in Minnesota, we're identifying a nonprofit to whom we're donating around $250,000 of services over the next few years. Basically donating all of our managed services to them. There are other prizes and donated services as well. So we encourage, either if you are a nonprofit, to go to mytech.com/grant. If you know a nonprofit that you'd like to nominate, go there, and there's actually, and Stephanie's going to be posting links in the Q&A on this, so you can actually go and nominate a nonprofit. That'll kind of let them know, and we'll reach out to them if you'd like to let them know, or just forward this on to folks that you feel could potentially benefit from this grant. The grant application closes on November 20th, so next Friday, I believe is the right 22nd or 23rd. So it's next Friday, in November. We're probably going to extend it maybe till right before Thanksgiving, just to give people a couple extra days time. But basically, the next 7 to 10 days is the grant. Actually, 2 weeks is the grant window. And of course, we'd love it if you could join us for future virtual training events like this, or other open forum sessions, or of our Power User Group sessions. So I really want to thank everyone for attending. I know I ran a little long today, but I went a little bit deeper on some of the items than I intended, but I hope that gave you some extra little nuggets of information and some tips as far as managing through the 5 different ways to hold meetings in teams. So for those of you who need to drop off, again, thank you very much for attending. We'll move on to the questions and answers. And for those of you who can stick around, thanks for sticking around, and let's open it up for questions right now.
Awesome, thanks, Nate. We do have a question asking about what the difference or advantage of live events versus regular Teams meeting other than the auto muting.
That is a great question. Ultimately, the muting is probably one of the best ones. The other capability, I think, is the way live, and we did a whole, by the way, we have another recording that we can use and that we can put in the follow-up, where we actually walk you through creating and using a live event. That'll give you a lot more details around it. But I think one of the other ways is that in general, like for instance, I'm sharing my screen right now, and I imagine that Stephanie has my video up on the side, and then I've got the sharing screen window up next to it. That's one of the things that live events does as well, is it allows you to tee up the next content. So if we had another presenter that was on, then maybe they had separate content, Stephanie would be able to, as a producer, tee them up in the preview, so they'd kind of be on the side of her window. And then when I transition maybe to another presenter, Stephanie with a click could basically make that session live. So she already had the video live already, and the sharing of content live, and then moved it over. And so there's some more advanced things you can do if you have, especially if you have multiple presenters where you're trying to go between their video or their content they're sharing. So there's some cool capabilities there. And because I'll tell you that one of the things that I read recently, and I don't know when it is on the Microsoft roadmap, but there's going to be a hard mute feature. That's what I think that's what it's called, where in other Teams meetings, you'll be able to do a hard mute on everyone that's attending. That's outside of live events, from what I understand. Of course, people will still be able to unmute themselves, I think. Again, that's a feature that's rolling out. So it's not just about the hard mute feature, but that is definitely one of the benefits, is that everyone basically has to interact through the Q&A. Oh, that's the other feature that live events has, is that the Q&A, as a producer, so Stephanie in this example, she might be able to answer questions that come in and not show them to the regular audience. So she can actually answer them offline, or she can answer them and post them publicly, or she can just share them publicly. So it's something that you can choose what information you're sharing with the wider audience, versus if you're just holding a Teams meeting, the chat is live for everybody in the chat for everyone to see. So those are some of the things that you can do in live meetings that are different from just holding a regular department meeting or a chat meeting. Hopefully that helps. Again, I referenced that other presentation that we did on hosting live meetings or live events, because there's a lot of content and tips on that too.
Yeah, and I just posted that into the Q&A if you're still with us, but I'll also do it in the follow-up email as well, so you have that.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Another question came through asking if you can also schedule a Google invite similar to the Outlook invite using a Teams meeting.
Google invite. I'm not really sure I understand.
How you did the Outlook one.
Yeah, I guess if I go, I don't know exactly what they're asking. Are they saying, can they create a calendar invite in Outlook and then do a Google invite to like a Google Hangout or something like that?
I think maybe more like a Google invitation, like a meeting, but then using a Teams link. That's the way I'm reading it.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question. I'm candidly, I'm just not that familiar with how Google does any integration with this. I would just suggest testing it if there's something that you're trying to accomplish. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, right now, it's Teams and Skype meetings are the options at the moment that I have in my Outlook. And depending on the version of Outlook you have, and if you're on a Mac or a PC, you'll see some different options up there. It'll look a little bit different. But I'm not really sure about how, unless there's a Google integration that might populate up there or that can integrate with Outlook. I don't know the answer to that question. Sorry.
Awesome. Yeah. Do you think it would be possible to, similar like how you copied and pasted the link to join the meeting, you could possibly do that in like a Google Calendar?
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's definitely something you can do. So for instance, I'll open this up, this calendar invite that we did as a test, and I can definitely take this, I'll right click and copy, I could obviously control C, control V, but I can basically do that. And then I can paste, right? So I can go down here and right click and paste, and it will, paste the same information. So it does work. I know I just did it in Outlook, but if you're trying to get that and you wanted to post that into a Google invite, you totally could. That's that. Yeah, you can use this link anywhere. You don't have to use the calendar, right? Because this link, as I hover over it, you can see that it's a unique link that you can copy and paste. And maybe this was the question. You can copy this into any venue. So for instance, another example is Stephanie and I are participating in one of our industry conferences virtually tomorrow, and we're going to copy and paste a Teams link just like this into the chat after that presentation is done, because it's pre-recorded, and we're going to invite people just to click on that link and join our chat. And so we're going to do live Q&A immediately after the presentation. But what we're going to do is effectively do exactly this. We're going to go create a Teams meeting just like what we did, and then I would take this information, we're just going to copy and paste that into the Q&A for people to link on. So I think that'd be roughly the same thing of putting it into a Google Calendar, or you could put it into an instant message. You could put it, basically the link is a link just like any other URL or link that you might provide for any other resource. I think that answers the question, at least the way you're asking.
I think so. And that's all the questions we have in the Q&A panel.
Okay, awesome. So I know that this seems relatively, I'm gonna go back to, the PowerPoint here. I know that some of this seems relatively basic. If you've been using Teams for a while, this seems elementary. I can tell you, in working with lots of different organizations and working with training, this is, unless you start integrating this into your daily world, you're not going to remember as much, and it's going to take you some time to get familiar. So I found that it takes 2 or 3 times of working with folks to really feel comfortable knowing the different ways to do Teams meetings and their purposes. So if you find anybody on your team struggling or wanting to learn more, I would definitely recommend referencing this recording so they can see the different ways, and it provides just, again, a quick how-to in a 30-minute context to be able to do it. And they can reference it at a later date, but just have some patience with your team if you're starting to use Teams individually, because again, it seems relatively simple if you're someone that's been using this quite a bit, but I know that this is something that it does take some time to get used to, because there are different ways, and that's part of the confusion, is there are different ways to actually do these conversations, and so sometimes it can make it a little bit challenging. So hopefully this was beneficial. I really appreciate you investing your time with us today. Like us or follow us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel where we put all this information. This is also all available on mytech.com, and on our events page. There's a link on our events page. in our recorded content page. So there's lots of information available. But I want to say thank you, everyone. Take care of yourself. I know that things are spiking and it's definitely challenging, but take care of yourself and each other. All right, we'll talk soon.